into a safer, quicker banking experience with Republic Bank's digital banking solutions. Enjoy the flexibility and convenience of effortless banking wherever and whenever you choose. Access your account anytime, day or night with Republic Online and bank on the go when you download the Republic mobile app. With 24/7 access to your account, you can transfer funds, pay your credit card, insurance, mobile, internet and utility bills, and even donate to your favorite charity. Hassle-free banking is now in the palm of your hands. With interbank transfers, you can instantly send funds to your friends and family who use other local banks with just a click. Sending cash is just as fast with cardless cash. Forgot your wallet at home? Need to pay a supplier, send cash to family, or quickly repay a friend? Send cash to yourself or to anyone with a mobile phone and access to any of our blue machines with ease. Keep track of all the banking transactions that are important to you with Republic Alerts. Receive instant text updates about salary deposits, card usage, transfers, scheduled payments, and more. It's time to revolutionize the way you bank with Republic Bank's digital banking solutions. Let's bank safely together.
Always remember to wear your masks when going out and to maintain social distancing by staying 6 feet apart. Don't play with your safety. This safety tip from the National Lotteries Control Board.
The team that won the head-to-head.
But one of the most important things is that he always tells us no matter what, just keep playing hard and do your best and you'll always be proud.
You don't need to be at the beach to enjoy a good bacon shark. Make your very own at home with Lion Brand Fry Bake Mix. Lion Brand, the power behind our great taste traditions.
Stay safe in your house. Together, TNT, let's help stop the spread of COVID-19. Don't play with your safety. This safety tip from the National Lotteries Control Board.
Your Visa card brings you up to 4 months of Disney Plus. Access this benefit now.
Welcome to Stop the Press. Yeah! Hey! All right. Hi, my name is Saleen. I'm a part of Spartans TT. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Today, I'm joined with my co-host, Ty and Maya.
Hi. Hi, my name is Ty Warwick. I also play for Spartans TT. I'm very excited and honored to be here tonight with you guys.
And hi, my name is Maya Richards, and I can't wait to learn more about mental health and how to deal with it in this lockdown. So tonight we have a special guest, Alexandria Olton. A little bit about her. Alexandria is a qualified sport and exercise psychologist, the director of Mindology Trinidad, and a columnist at the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday. Alexandria works primarily with athletic and sporting populations of varying ages and competitive levels, including national and international elite and Olympic athletes. Alexandria also provides performance psychology support for a number of public and private sector organizations locally, and most recently appeared as the feature speaker for Tutors National Teaching Convention. So before we bring in Alex, don't forget to share the live, press subscribe on our YouTube, and turn on notifications on Facebook to get updates on our next few episodes. So welcome, Alexandria.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, ladies, on this very first Spartans TT Stop the Press Live. I am thrilled to be here. Good night. And hello to viewers.
So,
Alexandria. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We are very excited to have you to learn about mental health from you. Of course, while we came up with some questions, we also put a poll out, so we'll also receive questions from persons watching the live as well.
Okay.
So, Alexandria, tell us some stuff about you.
About me, okay. I think Maya did such a wonderful job in the introduction, so thank you so much for that, Maya. She did her homework. But a little about me, as she described, I'm a sports and exercise psychologist here in Trinidad and Tobago. I've been practicing for the last 5 years now. The last 3 years locally here in Trinidad, and before that I was based in the UK. That's where I did my schooling, but of course I'm originally Trinidadian by birth. And I have been really privileged to interact with a number of our grassroots and national athletes throughout my time here in Trinidad thus far. I also am an assistant national coach for rugby. So on top of wearing the sports psych hat, I often wear the coaching hat, and I also coach at the club level for Royal Lions. And I'm just a sports lover who also happens to love to talk about mental health, and I'm really happy and excited to share as much as I can with you and your viewing audience tonight.
Thank you so much. Well, as you said, you told us a lot about yourself, so did Maya. I have a few other questions for you. So,
Sure.
First question for tonight. What made you decide to become a sports and exercise psychologist?
Well, it wasn't really that planned out to say. I'd always decided that this was my career. As a little girl, I actually wanted to be an engineer, just like one of my uncles, but that didn't pan out quite according to plan when I interacted with physics and realized I was not designed to do physics at all. But I pursued my undergraduate degree in psychology and sociology at the University of Kent. And coming down to the end of that degree, I was trying to figure out what career path I'd like to follow through with, what field of psychology I would like to study. And I thought about child psychology, educational psychology, and I realized swiftly that the clinical route was not necessarily the one I wanted to take. And having been an active sports person, both playing and as a sports fan, I decided to pursue careers in sports and along the sports psychology path. And I came across a master's program at Brunel University in London. And I applied, thankfully, achieved the grades that were required to enter. And, I haven't really looked back since. It was an incredible program with great lecturers, and I was able to conduct a lot of sports research there as well. And it really exposed me to the field of sports psychology in the best ways, and it fueled the passion for the degree I didn't know I wanted to do. So,
a long journey. Well,
yes.
Yes. Okay, well, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you pursue this job, did you have a person or persons to help motivate you into this career?
Yes, absolutely. I am blessed to have a multitude of persons. Of course, the journey begins with our parents and our family around us. So I was, lucky enough to have support from both my parents in my sporting careers, from playing hockey and cricket and running and football and karate and Krav Maga and everything under the sun, and they happily supported me through it all. And from that support, it was provided the springboard into my academic pursuits. And then as I, qualified as a sport and exercise psychologist, I came to realize that I needed that support, that kind of mentorship. And I was lucky to find that in my sort of master's level degree. I found sort of mentors and people that I could begin to network with. And slowly but surely, you start to just reach out to various people in the sports field. And then upon returning home to Trinidad, I was lucky enough to have a friend who was already in the field, and he put me on to another sports psychologist, and she sort of introduced me to the wonderful landscape that is here locally at Trinidad Sport. And from there, it's just flourished, and I've kept them, and I've kept all those who have supported me throughout the journey close, and just continue to add what I like to call my sport family. So, it really has been a truly blessed network of people that I've been able to meet and interact with. So,
one big motivating sports family there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm putting you on the spot just for this one. Okay. Give us, if you had to name one person, give us that name of the person who motivated you the most and why you chose that person.
Oh my goodness. It has to be one. I would say it has to be, my mom probably provided the spark for motivation for everything, and the drive for ambition. My dad as well, of course, because without him, I wouldn't have necessarily probably wanted to pursue sport in the way I did and so aggressively, because I watched him play sport, and as such, wanted to mirror that feeling, that camaraderie, that team sort of setting. So I would kind of halfway answer that question. So it was both my parents really, but the real spark and so on, because I grew up in Trinidad here with my mom, so she really provided that motivation from young to be ambitious, to pursue my goals and go forward, and don't be shy, and don't shy away from opportunities and challenges. And boy, are there challenges for women in the field of sport, especially locally. So take heed. It's not a perfect journey, but it's certainly one that, if you stick with it, is fulfilling. And so I would say my mom. Not to cop out.
That's nice. Okay, that's understandable. Another question. How long have you been doing this job?
I've been qualified since 2016. So I've been a qualified sports and exercise psychologist to the master's level from 5 years ago. So.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ty.
Okay, so you mentioned rugby.
Yeah.
Why rugby? Why do you love that sport?
I think it started, as I said, with my dad, but I grew to find my own love for it. Really, it is a sport that you either love it or you hate it, because it's full body contact, aggressive, sort of angry, attacking each other on the field kind of sport. But there is a certain sense of sportsman and sportswomanship that is developed between rugby players, that you're able to be so aggressive and tackle each other on the field like that and fight it out, and then be able to come off the pitch and share, a laugh together and interact, and still be such a close-knit and warm community. And I found that here in Trinidad, and then, it was accelerated in the UK, which is, of course, the home of rugby. That's effectively the country, the nation, they live and breathe it, other than New Zealand. So, it was just, I fell in love with the sport, and I just didn't want to give it up. And I think I have a thing for aggressive sports, because I also enjoyed Krav Maga, which is Israeli street fighting. So I think I have a thing for physical sports.
Okay, so Alex, let us get into this the theme of the conversation tonight, mental health. You know, I think that a lot of people have different definitions and beliefs on what mental health really is. So can you just give us like a simple definition that the youths will understand? What is mental health, and you know, why is it important?
Sure. That's such a challenge for some people sometimes to define mental health, because we can overly complicate it at times. And you use the right word there, Maya, simple. And I think that the simplest way to understand mental health is it's your cognitive, behavioral, and emotional sort of state, how you are. It's what we think, feel, and how we behave effectively. That is what mental health is. Oftentimes, a lot of people use mental health to suggest the absence of a mental disorder or mental illness. So we can also look at it from that perspective, that mental health or mental well-being is sort of the absence of what we have come to know as mental disorders or mental ill health. Why is it important? The simple answer, again, to keep it simple, is that it affects everything. It affects how we interact in our relationships with our friends, with our family, with our loved ones, with spouses or significant others. It affects how we approach day-to-day tasks, how we manage everyday life. Mental health and mental ill health can affect how productive we are, how fruitful and fulfilled we are as individuals. It can affect work, sport, especially, and this is my field of specialty, sports psychology. So I look at how mental health and mental ill health can affect athletes and their performance. And certainly mental health should be considered, impactful in every aspect of your physical and mental well-being.
All right. So I hope that was understood by, the persons listening, right? So what does it mean to be mentally well?
It simply means that you're able to cope with everyday life and the tasks and the stresses that come with living everyday life. Mental wellness varies from person to person, because of course we don't all experience life in the exact same way. We all certainly have jobs or go to school. We all interact with people to an extent and have different kinds of relationships, but the nature of those things vary from person to person. And that's why mental health is so unique to every individual. And that's certainly one of the most important parts of practitioners' work, is that you have to understand that so that you can be able to give the very best version of your support and your psychological support as a practitioner to your client, because everyone's mental health and mental wellness differs on various things. So what might make one person sort of feel mentally well or mentally fulfilled might not be the same for another. But certainly the ability to cope with everyday life stresses and manage those emotions and feelings that are associated with those things and the relationships that exist in everyday life for us.
All right. So in other terms, just being able to adapt to changes in your regular environment. So like certainly this lockdown, this whole pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We certainly saw whose structures weren't as firm as we once believed with the huge change in lockdown, and even the sturdy structures of mental well-being for some were very heavily shaken by this lockdown. So.
Okay. So some persons say they're fine, right? Mm-hmm. But what are some signs and symptoms we can look for to notice if someone's mental health is deteriorating?
That's a great question, and actually, it's far less complicated an answer than many might believe. It's dependent on the person, of course. If it's someone you live with versus a friend that you don't necessarily see every day, but certainly, although there are various extreme signs and symptoms that we can look for, it is just sort of negative changes in someone's emotional and physical well-being. If you notice someone who's usually very overt and bubbly and social, sort of starting to recluse and not socializing as much, not engaging as much with the people they usually love to chat with, then, It may not be a drastic change, or it might not be that they've gone from who they once were with fine and mental health or mentally well to completely mentally ill. But it's those small and cumulative changes over time that then lead to sort of bigger or more symptomatic things. So someone might lose some sleep while they're stressed, or they might feel physically tense. Your body might ache a little bit more. You might be suffering from headaches, or you find that you're agitated, or someone seems to be more irritable. So their behavioral changes, their emotional changes, and then their physical changes. And it can come from stress. It can come from sort of relationships. It can come from demands of work or sport or academics, and various things can impact that deterioration. So there's no one-shot answer, but it's about being self-aware about the people around you and those that you love and care about. If you notice these changes, it's, you don't need to do anything extreme. You just simply check in, have a nice little conversation. Hey, how are you? I noticed this. Is everything okay? And just start a conversation. I think the most important thing is making someone feel safe to communicate and not judged. That non-judgmental space, as we call it, is really important to be able to create that dynamic where someone is willing to then talk about, actually I'm feeling a little bit stressed more than usual, or, this lockdown has me feeling a little anxious because I'm a little worried about, the safety of my family, those sorts of things. So it's really about creating that non-judgmental space, but noticing the changes if you can.
Yeah, and in this lockdown, you would say it's much more important to check in with, friends, not mostly family that you live with, but like your friends and maybe immediate family.
100%. The more we band together as a community and check in on each other, the far more helpful it becomes in ensuring that everyone sort of someone to talk to. I think the most obvious side effect of this pandemic is loneliness and isolation, because we can't hug, we can't kiss, we can't engage and hug up our friends and say, oh my goodness. And I'm a very tactile person. It means I like to touch. So when I see my friends, I grab them and I squeeze them up. Or when I see my family, my little cousins, and I want to kiss them up. And it becomes very obvious what this pandemic is doing, because we can't engage in that, and taking that away from someone who is very tactile and relies on that physical love and affection, it can affect them. So it is important to make sure that you check in on those, not just in your immediate household, but you're right, your friends and extended family and so.
Thank you for that. That was very helpful for me personally. But we have some icebreaker questions. So we're going to move away from structured questions for a bit. So let's get to know you outside of sports and exercise. I have three questions for you.
Okay.
Quick, simple. Okay. So do you prefer doubles or roti?
Oh no, the loves of my life. You can't do this to me. I'm gonna make a snap decision, doubles, because I haven't had it in so long.
Okay. Do you prefer hot summer beaches or cold Christmas nights?
Hot summer beaches any day.
Okay. Last question. Do you prefer reggae or soca?
Oh, soca, carnival baby till I die.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Thanks, Ty.
And we have one more. Would you prefer Milo cold or warm?
Oh, cold, for sure.
Cold. Yeah. We did some polls on Insta, and 41% of you would do Milo cold.
Yeah, Milo cold. Yeah, that's how it is.
Okay. Back to mental health. Alex, in what way does sport impact our mental health?
In what way doesn't it is the question, because that physical movement generally affects our mental health in a very positive way. And actually our mental health can also affect our sport. And that's why sports psychology is so important for athletes, because athletes are also individuals who deal with everyday life. So if they're struggling with their mental well-being, it can certainly affect their sport. But to speak directly to how sport impacts mental health, physical exercise is actually something that the Psychiatric Association in the States prescribes as a means of reducing anxiety and depression. So physical activity on the whole, of course, if you've ever been to an exercise class, or been outside, take a run, take a walk, get that adrenaline going, then you have your endorphins or your happy hormones, which start to run through your body. And so it lifts your mood, it reduces anxiety and depression. Engaging in outdoor space with exercise and sport improves those even more. And certainly it reduces cortisol levels, which is our stress levels or stress hormone in the body that can be raised. You hear people say, oh, my pressure is raised, and it's because it's their cortisol levels that are rising in their body. So sport and the interaction of the physical body with teammates and playing, especially like basketball, where you really get into that aggressive kind of fight on the court for the ball kind of scenario, it certainly has only but positive impact on your mental well-being and your mental health overall. So
okay, yeah. Our next question here is, how does mental health affect us teenagers versus, let's say, adults?
That's certainly an interesting question, and one that research has been trying to answer more so now, and even address the gender differences, so females versus males and their experience of mental illness and mental disorders. If we're looking at the younger age groups, from the ages of 13 to 14, you would actually notice a doubling in the experience of mental disorders than in the ages 17 to 18. So if we're moving from one age group to the next, between that space, it doubles in mood disorders in particular, like depression or dysthymia or sort of any kind of mood disorder, bipolar disorder, and so on. So as adolescents start to get older, with those hormonal changes, physiological changes in the body and the expression of those hormones, they are certainly susceptible to experiencing mental illness. And then if we're looking at compared to adults, that age group, so let's consider an adult 26 plus. So from the age of 18 to 25, they actually experience more co-occurring what we call mental ill health and substance use and abuse. So because it's not necessarily because of their mental illness do they have substance abuse or vice versa, but there is certainly a relationship between the two during that period of sort of 18 to 25, more so than in adulthood, when they reach the age of 26. So it's also not just mental illness, but we have to look out for sort of substance use and reliance on substance abuse. And then we have, sort of eating disorders, which are on the rise, especially in the adolescent age group as well. And with the impact of social media and sort of, the exposure to various body images and what these images should look like and what we should look like, we see in athletes as well, a lot of eating disorders. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, the statistics are a little less available because we don't have as many mental health statistics regularly produced. But the general consensus is that 1 in every 11 days, someone commits suicide right here in Trinidad and Tobago. We're the second highest rate of suicide to Guyana, which suffers a lot of suicide rates as well. And we see a lot of mental illness, and those high suicide rates linked actually to the ages of about 11 to 13, especially when these young kids morphing from children to sort of adolescent stage, teenage stage, and sitting that SEA exam and the pressures of changing schools and so on. There are also a lot of suicide rates at that point in time, that period of transition in their life. So certainly we have to protect our adolescents who are so susceptible to mental illness and mental ill health. Not that we don't need to look out for the adults, but they're in a stage of vulnerability in their life that requires that protection and extra guarding. So,
okay, I didn't know that about SEA students. That was
a little sad, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we have to protect our little ones as well.
Yeah. So we have a question that we actually got from somebody on Instagram.
Sure.
That they sent in. They actually asked, During this pandemic, along with the current SOE, what advice or motivation would you give to students who are unmotivated towards school?
That's certainly a topic that I've been trying to figure out the best answer to with my own clients, because of course I work with a lot of young people who are athletes but also students, and unfortunately the online learning platform is not designed for everyone. I certainly know that I cannot learn through online lessons alone. It's very difficult. You have the physical fatigue, staring at a screen all day. You have the mental fatigue and loss of concentration and that sort of thing. But what I've been trying to help my athletes with and push them through is that they find the time after the lesson or after school, if they're in a non-exam class. So I'm talking about an athlete who is like, let's say, Form 1 to 3, because of course the exam classes really start, let's say 4 to 6 is when you really start to prepare and so on. After the lesson. And so try and go over it with, let's say, a parent at home or a sibling, have someone sit and talk it out with you. I've noticed that is what we really miss, is that in-person interaction. And sometimes just talking it out with someone else really makes the difference. If we don't have the luxury of talking it out with someone else, to stay motivated, to stay consistent, ensure that you're not engaging in screen time after school, because it's so difficult. What we believe is relaxation is we come off the laptops with the teachers and we go onto our phones, onto Instagram or Facebook, talking with friends on WhatsApp, because we're not seeing them in person and having that in-person interaction. But all we're doing is depleting that physical energy a lot more. So certainly it's about reducing that screen time as much as possible. And I know it's very difficult because our phones are very addictive devices. I find myself needing to set specific timers to switch off as well. So I'm guilty as charged here. But it's certainly important to take care of your physical health while we're enduring this version of schooling. Ensuring you're eating, ensuring that you're sleeping sufficiently, that you're not going to bed late. These devices also keep us awake because of the quality of the light that they produce. It stimulates the light receptor cells in the back of our eyes, which tells our body, don't produce melatonin, which is, the hormone that makes you fall asleep. Instead, wake up. And, that's why if you put your phone down at 11 o'clock, hoping to sleep after you're feeling exhausted, you don't fall asleep till 1 o'clock in the morning, because your body is awoken by the cell phone light, no matter how nighttime mode and dim it might be, right? So, certainly taking care of your physical health, and then engaging in some kind of movement. Move, do yoga, do stretching, go and stand up in the grass outside in the yard, go and take a lap around the house, go play with your dog if you have one, a cat, a hamster, buy a fish if you have to and talk to them. Just engage in something physical that is not device related, and get that balance going again, because that's what we're really craving, is that physical engagement. So that's certainly something that we need to take note of. I see that there are a couple questions and people hating on my cold Milo response, but if you guys want to address some of the questions in the comments, I'm sorry if I offended anyone with my cold Milo, okay?
We have a question coming in from Anastasia. How do you start and maintain exercising when you can barely get out of bed?
So this is something that is very personal. You have to figure out the time of day that works for you to exercise. I am someone who can really exercise well in the morning when I was physically going out to work, but I realized that being at home, I can't drag myself off the bed at 5 in the morning to do a workout before I'm supposed to start work. So I've resigned to doing it in the evenings after. So around 5:30, I'll put down, the clients, the phones, whatnot, if I'm able to, and work. And actually, I was having this discussion with a fellow sports psychologist, and she was saying, I've just been sat here on the yoga mat, fully dressed and just not able to do anything. And I say, what I actually did once and didn't realize it was happening was I just started playing the music for my workout. And I was answering WhatsApps quickly before I started. And I just kind of started shaking. And then I realized by the end of it, I was dancing to the music and it got me moving. And dancing is a really great way to start getting some motivation in. And I think what's really important for people is to put things into context and perspective. What we can do at home is not what we can do in the gym. It's not the same gains. It's not the same muscles. It's not the same definition. So we have to put things into perspective of what to expect of yourself. If one day you're not feeling it, do some simple yoga stretches instead. At least you got that movement in, or just take a walk somewhere. I mean, we're not allowed to technically exercise outside, but around the house, in your own private home, and so get that physical movement going. Because and I think it's just about being sort of kind to yourself and limiting your expectations of self. So and then eventually a routine might take form. So
Okay, we have our next question coming in. What advice will you give someone with non-supportive parents?
I mean, what kind of advice, and as non-supportive is related to what? If they're non-supportive to you doing illegal things, then I would agree with them. If they're non-supportive, let's say, for your pursuits and career goals and so on, then I think there is a need to develop a line of communication. At the end of the day, everybody can communicate in some way, shape or form. And if something is of great passion to you and you are impassioned and committed to it, then I'm sure there is some common ground that can be found. Sometimes we don't want to compromise, especially at this adolescent rebellious age, and we love to do what parents say not to do. And sometimes we still have that red button syndrome, but it's certainly something that you can, I mean, that is a very general and non-specific question. So I don't want to provide any kind of random advice, but I would say to begin with, maybe open the lines of communication somehow.
All right, so I hope that answer helped the person. And last question, if you notice one of your friends not coping at school, what can a person say to make the conversation easier?
So that's a good question. If they're one of your friends and you speak regularly, just if you want, you can introduce the conversation through your own experience. Say, I'm finding it really difficult lately to manage this school thing. How are you feeling with all of this? Or take it from the standpoint of, hey, I just wanted to check in. How are you coping with all of this? It's been a struggle for everyone. I know it's hard for me. That level of what we call empathy is required, because there's a big difference between sympathy and empathy. And there's a great little video on YouTube. I don't know if anyone watches Brene Brown, but she's an amazing psychologist who talks about vulnerability. And she says that the difference between sympathy and empathy is when someone's in a hole and you stand at the mouth of the hole and say, hey, how's it going down there? And empathy is getting a ladder and climbing down in the hole with someone and saying, hey, I know it's tough times for you, but we're in this together, kind of thing. So it's about sharing that experience and creating that sort of safe space for the individual to feel comfortable to talk. And as I said before, that non-judgmental experience is really important. If someone is trying to disclose, sometimes mental and mental ill health can be a little bit scary for people. And if you may not be prepared to handle a conversation like that, then don't engage. Because sometimes if someone is revealing thoughts or feelings, I feel really sad all the time, and somebody will be like, what do you have to feel sad for? That'll automatically make someone sort of close up and recluse and not want to talk. So it's about being empathetic and understanding your strengths in empathy and in the ability to handle that conversation. So.
All right, thank you so much. We're just going to take a little quick break, 1 minute for our sponsors. So see you guys on the flip side.
Always remember to wear your mask when going out and to maintain social distancing by staying 6 feet apart. Don't play with your safety. This safety tip from the National Lotteries Control Board.
Friends, the team that won the head-to-head.
But one of the most important things is that you always tell us, no matter what, just keep playing hard and do your best, and you'll always be proud.
Stay safe in your house. Together, TNT, let's help stop the spread of COVID-19. Don't play with your safety. This safety tip from the National Lotteries Control Board.
Your Visa card brings you up to 4 months of Disney Plus. Access this benefit now.
You might. Yeah.
Anyways, welcome back to Stop the Press with our Sports and CC family and Alexandria. Hope you enjoyed the first half of our conversation this far, and don't forget to share the live and subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on our post notifications, like, comment, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and stay tuned for our next episode. Right now, we are going to take a little break from the mental health discussion, and we're going to go into some jokes, some little try not to laugh, dad jokes. You guys send some on Instagram. We're going to read some of those. And the goal of this here, guys, we cannot laugh. We cannot laugh. We have to keep our mics on because y'all, I don't know. Yeah. All right. So, Maya, start us off.
All right. So the first joke I was sent in, right? So singing in the shower is fun until you get soap in your mouth. Then it's a soap opera. The cricket in the background.
Sorry, my cricket's
it's theatrical elements to it.
Okay, so the second joke. Did you hear the rumor about the butter?
No.
Well, I don't want to spread it.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like the fact that they are so stale makes them even funnier.
We're not supposed to be laughing. We're not supposed to be laughing. Okay, time.
Come on, we got this. Come on, team.
Oh, me? I have jokes? Okay. If you thought those were stale, mine are even worse. Okay. What do you call it when a group of apes start a company?
Monkey business.
That does not count. You knew that. Okay, hold on. I need a new one. Okay. Why are elevator jokes so classic and good?
Is it because
No?
Wait. I didn't hear what you said. Wait, what?
Okay.
I didn't hear what you said.
Why are elevator jokes so classic and good?
I don't know.
Because they work on so many levels. You hear my crickets?
Yes, you're such a paid actor.
Yes.
Okay, my turn. Hold on. Wait.
Saleen, you have to tell a joke before you can start laughing.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
I'm trying not to laugh. You're making us hard, okay? What do you call?
Just spit it out. Come on.
What do you call a sleepwalking nun?
Oh, Roman Catholic.
No. No. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Choose. Okay. What did the janitor say when he jumped out the closet?
I don't know.
What?
Saleen, You said 2 jokes with no answers.
Come on.
Literally.
Supplies. He said supplies.
No, you took it from me. He said supplies. He said supplies.
Oh my God. Okay.
We clearly failed at this challenge.
Okay. Now back down to the business of the day.
4 of us laughing at very bad jokes. This is not what this conversation is about.
Okay.
Oh.
Back down to the business of the day.
Oh. Sorry.
Okay. Saleen. Okay. Going back to questions. Whew. What are big factors that impact on mental health besides social media?
Wow. Okay. There's so many, Ty. Realistically, anything can impact mental health. Relationships, healthy and unhealthy relationships can impact our mental well-being. Tasks that are required of us from school or work, certainly performances in sport, and good performances and poor performances can certainly have impacts on our mental health. As you mentioned, not social media, but social media is certainly a major player in mental health and adolescent mental health at that. Relationships with parents and family, or those that you live with and are taking care of you as young people, that can certainly have an impact. Relationships with your teachers, a lack of sort of independence sometimes, especially during the age of adolescence, where you want to feel independent, you want to feel like you're developing your own identity, you want to feel that you're developing your own sort of sense of who you are, and sometimes it can impact your mental health and your mental wellness. Physical or lack of physical activity, your diet massively affect your mental health, and your sleep as well. So sort of basic and generic things, and also just everyday things. So
thank you.
Okay, so what are good ways? My bad. So Alex, you deal mainly with athletes, right? And I think most of the viewers, the basketballers, persons who do sports, what are there any coping mechanisms that athletes specifically could do in this lockdown to help get through this?
Certainly. For us as mental health practitioners, this is certainly a very unique experience for us as much as it is for everyone else. So we did not necessarily have a sort of plan prepared as to how to deal with a situation like this, not just here locally, but a global pandemic where the entire world came to a halt, including sport. Gone are the days of spectators in the stands of sports. We now watch games with just the athletes and the officials and the coaches. We don't see any spectators anymore. So it's certainly a unique experience. With respect to what athletes can do specifically, athletes at the end of the day are people and human beings just like everyone else. The massive difference between athletes and the general population is the fact that they are accustomed to engaging in a lot of physical activity and training. So for example, if you're a student athlete, you might have engaged in training after school or in the morning before classes start. You might have matches or competition against other schools and clubs and so on. And that is no longer available to us, or as of right now, it's not available to us. The difficulty with this is that we are still holding on to the hope that we can return to life as we once knew it. But as this pandemic progresses, it becomes more apparent that that is not going to be the case. I don't know is the answer to when are things going to reopen and I'm going to be able to intermingle and engage with lots of people in the same room. I don't know if that's ever going to be reality for us. And so we must fixate rather not on the past, but what's in front of us. I give my athletes a phrase. It says, control the controllables, which simply means that take ownership or take charge in front of the things right in front of you, or the things that you have immediate control over. You have immediate control over your sleep hygiene, as we call it, or your sleep routine. You have immediate control over your diet. As I mentioned, it plays a major role in your sort of mental wellness, because in your gut are 90% of your serotonin receptors. Serotonin is another sort of happy or good mood or mood lifter hormone. So what you eat is really important. If you put a lot of processed sugars and high fat foods, you might feel really good for maybe about half an hour to an hour, and then you'll have a very sudden crash, and your mood will dip, and you'll feel really awful. So what you take into your body really affects your mental health and your mental well-being. So sleep, food, as I said, interacting with people, the family in your home, reaching out to friends, fellow athletes, even starting little online groups within yourselves, what you can do at home. I think I made mention to you girls once before, staying familiar with the equipment that you use in your sport. If you have a basketball at home, or whatever sport you might play, football, tennis, if you have a racket, pick it up, get familiar with the equipment again, and become, comfortable with it once more. And certainly, as I said, and I think it's a recurring theme through the talk, is move, get that physical activity going in some shape or form. I know the motivation is not always there. I know it's really difficult. Sometimes you have to drag yourself from one part of the house to the other, and it's really important to just make sure you have that, and write down your schedule, have a routine, have a daily schedule planned, have a weekly schedule planned, what you're going to do at X, Y, and Z time, and so on, so that you feel purpose-filled, you feel like you're being productive in some way, shape, or form. So some small tips that you can utilize, but it's certainly a challenge for athletes, especially here in Trinidad, who are not able to compete in the sports they once loved. So.
All right. I hope that provided, persons with a lot of information, because I certainly took away a lot from that. We have a question from the comments. What are some strategies a person can use in a stressful situation?
Well, identifying what the stressor is certainly one of the most important things. So if the stressful situation is something related to school or family or whatever it might be, what or even who is the stressor? Because sometimes people can be stressors for us, not just things, but the things that people say and the way that people speak with us. So certainly, identifying what your stressor is, and then identifying how you're responding to that stressor. Are your stress levels really high? Is it been enduring for some time? What are you experiencing? Because stress is both a physiological and psychological response of the body. So it's both your physical body's response and your mental response as well. So what kind of response is your body having? Are you having difficulty sleeping? Are you having difficulty eating? Are you irritable? Are you sort of feeling very low mood, low motivation, that sort of stuff? Once you've identified the stressor and how you're responding to that stressor, then try to find a solution as to how to deal with that stressor. Because not oftentimes we can change a stressful situation. Sometimes we just exist in one, and it's about finding ways to cope with it. And I think one of the most powerful ways to manage one's emotions, I always encourage, is through journaling. Now, a lot of people go, ooh, journaling, I don't like that, that's writing. But that's not necessarily the essence of journaling. It doesn't have to be long text storytelling, dear diary, I saw this today kind of thing. It doesn't have to be like that. Journaling can be structured or unstructured. If your stressor gets you to the point where you just sort of see red and you just respond really emotionally, get those emotions out onto paper. Just write exactly what you're thinking, and then when you calm down, go back to that journal and read what you wrote down and identify whether that response was justified. What emotion was I feeling? Was it anger? Was it stress? Was it frustration? and why was I feeling that? And how would I respond to the same situation in the same way, or would I respond differently if the same situation arose again? And identify how you might change your response. Because as I said, sometimes the only thing we're in control of is ourselves and our emotions rather than anything else around us. If we can get rid of the stressor, then by all means, get rid of the stressor. But if you can't, then certainly it's important to identify what's within your control and the solutions to fixing it.
Okay, so Alex, this next question is on overthinking. How does overthinking affect us, and how can persons stop this habit?
Overthinking is exactly what it says. It is thinking on a particular thought or emotion or situation. It's replaying it over and over and over again and being overly analytical and critical about it. We as human beings are designed to naturally be sort of negative in our thinking. That is our sort of automatic response to thoughts. And that's because that is our evolutionary makeup, if it were. Because before the modern world that we live in, we had to ensure survival. And the way you survive is by identifying, okay, what's going to attack next? Or where am I going to get my food from? So that negative thought process that hasn't necessarily evolved as quickly as our society. So overthinking is a form of self-talk, if it were, or the way we speak to ourselves. So it's the language that we use. And, you know, science kind of suggests we have about 6,000 thoughts a day, and you really can't identify the start and end of any one thought. I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you just started thinking about something and you're jumping from thought to thought. You really can't identify when something ends and when something starts, when something ends. So it's really important to sort of identify the language you're using and why are you overthinking? What is it about this situation? Identify that has triggered you so much to engage in this practice. And it's a habit is what it is. So it's important to kind of be aware. I mean, the crux of and the core of mental health starts with self-awareness, the ability to understand what affects you, when and how and why. And it's not an easy practice, and it's not something that comes sort of immediately. It's not our automatic reaction. You have to practice being self-aware. And this is where the hard work for a lot of people comes in, because with self-awareness comes vulnerability, identifying where your weaknesses are and where your sort of sore points are. And sometimes that's really hard for people to take note of. Sometimes it's really hard for people to face certain things that affect them and certain things that trigger them or cause them to overthink and so on. So to answer the latter half of your question, sort of how do you stop it? You begin a process. I've simplified it to the 3 Ds, if it were, of self-talk. So you identify, the first one is to identify or engage in something called thought stopping. So you identify when you're overthinking, when you're in that situation of overthinking, and stop the thought, quite literally stop the thought. So you become self-aware of this process that you're engaging in, and then either you picture a big stop sign or you literally say, Alex, stop. And then you try to break the thought cycle, if it were. And then you try to identify if your thinking is rational or not. Why am I thinking this way? Is there an argument that suggests what I'm thinking is true, or is a lot of what I'm thinking emotional and sort of overly harsh or overly critical? Sort of debate, if it were, with yourself, is this really how the situation is, or is there a more rational way to think about this? And then we reframe that thinking process. So basically, you alter the language you're using. So you can't necessarily jump from super negative to super positive language. So you can't go from this is the worst feeling in the world to I feel great. It's just simply not possible unless you're taking some kind of upper, right? So what we're hoping to achieve is to neutralize that thought. So this is a very challenging situation, or this is very difficult, and I can do X, Y, and Z. So it's about the language that you're using. And that language comes from everyday conscious thought. So you can literally be practicing the habit of overthinking without even realizing it in every single thing that you do. so identifying that habit and trying to tweak the self-talk that we engage in on a day-to-day sort of basis is really important to start to break that habit. Of course, if you find yourself continually spiraling and so on, then I would suggest seek the counsel of a mental health practitioner of some kind, because it can take a toll on self-esteem and confidence and so on. So.
Thank you for that information. I know that this is helping me a lot. I hope it is for everybody else watching.
That was nice.
Yes.
I'm glad, guys.
Okay, I have another off-topic question for you, though.
Sure.
Bit of an icebreaker as well. Okay. If you could meet one legendary sports personality, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Can I pick one male and one female? I have to just pick one in general.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, why not?
A sort of sporting idol in the world of rugby for quite a long time for me, because I'm a huge New Zealand rugby fan, is a New Zealand rugby player by the name of Richie McCaw. And why I have admired him is because he's the very reason that they have changed many of the rules and regulations around the game of rugby with respect to what's called the scrum, which is the engagement of the 8 players of both teams into a physical contest. And he was literally so powerful, and his ability to move the scrum, they actually had to adjust the rules to cater for his power and his sheer ability. So, he's just a machine of a human being that I have always taken, great admiration for. And the female athlete, boy, oh boy, who would that be? There are so many amazing and powerful female athletes. I'm quite torn between a track and field athlete, because there are a lot of strong contenders in the track and field world, or perhaps I would say maybe Serena and Venus Williams, the Williams sisters. I think they have truly been powerhouse athletes for a long time and have overcome sort of really amazing challenges throughout their careers, and yet have been able to be so successful and so decorated as tennis players. So I would certainly say they're definitely on the top there. You've certainly caught me off guard with that question, Ty. So if I had an answer prepared, I'd probably done a bit more homework and chosen one. But off the cuff, I think those would be the 2 athletes I'd choose. So.
I mean, they're great answers. I agree with you. So.
Okay. It's my last question. Pretty nice.
Oh no, has it been an hour already?
Yeah, so my last question is, what are ways to maintain healthy routines during a depressive episode?
Oh, wow. That can be challenging because depression can certainly take different forms in various individuals. And not being a clinical practitioner as such, my advice would be very generic. So please let that be a little footnote to those listeners. But certainly pre-planning the routines and having accountability factors. And what I mean by that is whether it's alarms, it's a person, it's someone in your immediate space. I think one of the things that pushed me through my pursuit of a mental health career was I was sort of always the one to be there for a lot of my friends during certain periods of their life. And what I noted with most of them is that they always just needed that reassurance from someone, especially during a depressive episode where someone's self-worth and self-confidence is certainly very, very low or very diminished at that point that they're experiencing. Because you have to be very careful, because someone within a depressive episode, if it's very extreme, can be on a high rate of suicidal tendencies. So you have to tread a very cautious line. And it's certainly difficult for those around to try and ensure that they're providing the best support that they can. But having that accountability to someone that daily check-in and helping get them through that that period of their life, ensuring that they're getting the help that they need as well. I think a lot of people try to take on the depression and the depressive episode on their own and don't seek the help that they require from, be it a mental health practitioner, a counselor, someone that they can talk to. We have an amazing set of hotlines available here in Trinidad and Tobago that have been sort of developed and sustained throughout this pandemic. So if you look up the Trinidad and Tobago Psychological Association, of which I'm a member of, or TTAP, they have a flyer with a series of numbers that you can call and contact at any time, and they are certainly willing to help anyone experiencing sort of really difficult times during this pandemic and struggling with their mental health and mental wellness. And I think, that's certainly some of the ways, creating that healthy routine, finding healthy alternatives and coping mechanisms. A lot of people in a depressive episode can certainly they can turn to substance use, substance abuse, self-harm, and these kinds of things. So it's about helping someone identify what are healthier coping mechanisms, working out more often, or instead of substance use, try cleaning, or I've seen it happen in individuals. I've also noted that just ensuring that they have the consistent routine is what's important. When someone's going through a depressive episode, sometimes that consistency is what they require, and if they don't have it and things are too fluctuating in their life, it makes it worse. So those are some things I think that certainly can lend to helping it.
All right, thank you. We have a question from the audience. How does religion affect mental health?
Oh, this is a very controversial question. I'm going to take it as religion as an individual belief rather than religion, the entire organization, and how it impacts mental health. Certainly religion can be a very useful, sort of contributor to positive mental wellness, because we can rely on faith in times of difficulty. If you are a fairly religious individual, sometimes it can stop us from seeking the help of practitioners and counselors if we sort of put our faith more in our religion and don't necessarily sort of say, okay, I need to seek the help and gain that support alongside my religious beliefs. So it's a balance for the individual. You need to know when it's time to seek help and balance it with your prayer life. But certainly the meditative and prayerful and faithful practices of any religion can only be comforting to someone who is struggling. But as long as they are obtaining that proper health care and mental health care alongside that, then I think, religion can do nothing but be an extra pillar of support.
All right, I hope that was, informative to, the person that asked the question. And I know you talked a little bit on this before, but how do you help someone that has a mental, disorder that doesn't have the support team around them that they need? I know you said to, open up the communication lines. Can you just briefly explain it again for anyone that, wasn't here?
Sure. So is this a formal diagnosis, first of all? Because it can be very tricky. We have Dr. Google now, where we kind of go online and we find a diagnosis and provide that self-diagnosis. And we have to tread very carefully, because I think as well, I didn't touch on it because I didn't want to break the hearts of too many adolescents by coming down on social media, but social media can certainly trivialize the way that mental health is expressed, and everyone is depressed, or everyone is experiencing trauma, or you see all these posts and so on, and these few words or phrases that say, if you suffer this, this, and this, you have this. And so we have to be very careful that we are not reading ourselves into a mental disorder as well. We have to seek that professional help to get that diagnosis, which is available both privately and public sector. We have mental health support in the public health system if it's not something that can be afforded privately. once you've received that diagnosis, and certainly you're able to utilize the support of the clinician who provided that diagnosis to emphasize the importance to your family members. Mental health, however, in Trinidad does still carry this very overwhelming stigma, and families don't like to somebody just commented, go to Dr. Google. I didn't say go to Dr. Google. I said don't go to Dr. Google. Yeah, sometimes family support can be very difficult to garner around mental health or mental ill health, because it means that there is a weakness or that someone didn't do enough. And I mean, a lot of times family members carry the burden of the blame that, if it's a parent or so watching their child, they think they were bad parents and that's why the child is suffering with mental illness or very, struggling with mental ill health. But that's simply not the case. Sometimes it's a chemical imbalance, sometimes it's situational, sometimes it's as a result of a direct situation that took place in that person's life. And it's very difficult to maneuver if you're not getting the support that you need. But there are people who are willing to lend that support, myself included. As I said, I'm not a clinician. I'm a sport and exercise psychologist, but I utilize sort of psychological underpinnings for performance. But I'm also always open to be a psychological resource for those who want to reach out and just need someone who is supportive and in their corner and talk to. And, you can find me on social media, on Instagram. You can find me at MindologyTT and reach out. And I'm here, and I'm happy to let Sports and share my contact information at any time. If anyone needs that extra support, especially as athletes, all sharing in this difficult time together. So.
All right, thank you. And so we talked a little bit about being overwhelmed earlier before, and seeing that you mentioned social media just now, would you say that social media is a good way to de-stress? I know you mentioned like the negative parts of social media, what it could do, but like,
is it a good way to de-stress? Ultimately, I would say no. And I know I'm going to probably hurt a lot of feelings by saying this. If we're referencing social media as inclusive of WhatsApp and instant messaging channels, then sure, in the interaction with friends and family and loved ones via those means can certainly be a de-stressor and avenues to talk about certain things. But the nature of social media in the likes of the very popular and common ones, I'm not going to name any names because I don't want them to send me an email after telling me that I'm going to be sued. But what I will say is that the content is so varied and it's not always positive. It's not always happy. And we have no control over what we're exposed to versus what we're not exposed to. And we might jump on saying, I'm just going to flick through. And quite often, during this pandemic, I found myself doing it, that I come off a call, I come off something, and I just pick up my phone and I'm just scrolling. And I realized that it wasn't really helpful, but it was more harmful to my own mental wellness because, as I said, the content is uncontrolled. So I would see all the stories about, let's say, COVID-19 or the vaccines or the lack of support here and there, or you'd see people dying, or you look at social media and you see body images of people and you're like, oh, I don't have access to the gym and I don't look like this. And, I think it can be very damaging to an extent. And a de-stressor, I wouldn't say, because the nature of social media is designed that it affects us the way that drugs, illicit drugs and substances do. It affects our dopamine levels. So every time we get a like, every time we get a comment, it spikes our dopamine levels, which means that we feel good. We get that excitement. We feel great about it. But of course, these things are designed on algorithms. So not every post that we post gets those likes, gets those comments. So when we don't get that, then our cortisol levels rise because we're feeling stressed. So why did they like this post and not this post? And it's simply because it's not being seen by as many people because of the algorithm that the social media platform is based on. And then it begins to chip away at our confidence and our self-confidence. And actually, it can create a lot more stress and a lot more, or a more complex dynamic. And then we become addicted to it, because dopamine triggers are very addictive. That's why people get addicted to illicit substances like cocaine and heroin. The dopamine hits are very great when they strike, but they're very short-lived, and so we're constantly chasing that high feeling. And it's the same concept with social media. I know it sounds far-fetched, but it's very much the same. Psychology has found, and brain scans and brain research has found, that it takes exactly the same form. And so I would say, if you were asking me a general question, I would say no, it probably causes more stress than de-stressing. So
thank you for that. Listening tonight, I've learned a lot. I don't know if it's just me, but I learned a lot, and I'm glad that I'm part of this, to get a better understanding of what mental health truly is. As a psychologist, what would you say the best part of your job would be, though?
Oh, it's certainly interacting with my athletes and my clients, because I don't just deal with athletes, I also deal with coaches and parents. I have sports officials, and then I also have people who are just into the realm of performance. So students who want to perform at exams, or business people who want to perform in their workplaces, and so on, managers and directors, and so. And certainly the most fulfilling part is interacting with them. I'm always, that I came across a phrase the other day that said, you learn when you listen. And I feel like I learn a lot, because part of my job is to really listen to people. And I learn so much every day from all the different people that I listen to. Tonight, I've learned so much from listening to you girls and the comment section, and understanding what people are interested in. And I think that it's the most fulfilling part for me, because I love to help others and see others thrive and be their very best and most sort of mentally well selves. And so if I can contribute in some way to someone's wellness, I can't see why that won't be the most fulfilling part of my journey as a sports psych. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 1 on this mental health series. But stay tuned for episode 2, because we're coming through to episode 2. Yeah. Thank you, Alex, for joining us.
Thank you so much, girls.
Yeah, to talk with us today. It was very nice. We learned a lot. I learned a few things myself on mental health. Yeah.
Okay. Don't forget to, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel to get updates on our next episodes. Also, turn on notifications on our Facebook and Instagram to get your updates.
Well, from your Stop the Press crew, we thank you for joining us, and don't forget to share this on your pages, as it will be saved to our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Thanks to our club sponsors, as without them our club will not be possible: Republic Bank, NLCB, Milo, Tailwind Limited, and last but not least, P-Mobile, for providing us with Wi-Fi access tonight. So bye, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining.
Always remember to wear your masks when going out, and to maintain social distancing by staying 6 feet apart. Don't play with your safety. This safety tip from the National Lotteries Control Board.
The team that won the head-to-head.
But one of the most important things is that he always tells us, no matter what, just keep playing hard and do your best, and he'll always be proud.
Stay safe in your house. Together, TNT, let's help stop the spread of COVID-19. Don't play with your safety. This safety tip from the National Lotteries Control Board.
Your Visa card brings you up to 4 months of Disney Plus. Access this benefit now.